Run to Old Navy today for revolutionary prices on summer's hottest swimwear. Today only, all swimwear is 60% off. That's 60% off board shorts, chic bandeaus, and stylish one pieces. All swimwear is 60% off, but just for one day. Today, run to Old Navy. Valid 7/3.
One of those things that we have been told is abortion. We have been told that Roe v. Wade is settled law. That's what we keep being told. There's no reason to fight it. As a matter of fact, we shouldn't, that those of us who value life should stop talking about it politically. There have been people who have said, especially in the Republican Party or on the right, we should stop talking about it. It's too divisive. Stop talking about it. Well, there is, and what media is never going to talk about. There is a genocide going on, and I am not going to. I'm simply not going to say that this is hyperbole, because if you look at the numbers, it's true. There's a genocide going on right now called Black Genocide. The purpose of this, let me see. This is from stats of the. Oh, there it is. There it is. The website is coming up, blackgenocide.org. And the one of the folks who is pushing this cause of saving an entire race of children, especially of Black American children that are continuously being murdered. And have been, is Reverend Childress. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm going back and forth in my email because he's going to call me in a little bit. It is absolutely amazing, absolutely positively amazing that this carnage, frankly, this carnage that continues in the in the Black community isn't covered by media. Now, I'll be gentle with this. Anytime you see someone killed, it's a sensitive thing. It's a sensitive thing. And I don't want to, and I can't imagine being a parent of a child that gets killed, whether they get killed by a gang member, whether they get shot by the police, whatever. I can't imagine losing a child that way. It would be devastating, and frankly, I don't know if I'd ever recover. I don't know if I'd ever recover, to be honest. I know that I would never be the same. And I probably wouldn't be much good for the rest of my life. So I understand. I can't identify with the hurt, but I can understand it. So when you have kids like Mike Brown, and I'll call him a kid because he was in his 20s, when you have kids like Trayvon Martin who lose their lives behind some nonsense, I get the hurt of the parents. I get the frustration of the parents that they are lashing out. They are trying to find some rhyme or reason to all this. They're trying to find something to hold on to. And it's easy for people to rally around them in a cause. But what I don't understand is that I'm trying to remember the statistic. So if I'm not exactly right, you'll just have to forgive me. In New York in 2011 or 2010, 9 or 10, there were 11,000 non-white children aborted in New York. 11,000. 11,000. not one, not two, not even the horror of 49 or 100 and I'm thinking 173 people shot in Chicago this year, but 11,000 black children or non-white children murdered in utero. It is absolutely, amazingly ridiculous. Absolutely amazing, ridiculous. And no one seems to care. No one seems to care. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and try to reach out to our guest, the force behind blackgenocide.org, Dr. Clinard. Names. Reverend Clinard Childress. Let's see here. Let me, if I can, I've got to do two things here. So just forgive me. I know you will, because that's what you do. You always forgive me, because you guys know that, who've listened to the show over the years, that one of the things that I don't do very well is type and talk at the same time. After all these shows, all these 1,500 shows, you think that I would have gained that talent, gained that ability? I haven't, and I'll tell you why, because I've avoided it. It's like anything else. If you avoid it, if you push it away, you will never be able to do it. But we're gonna reach out to our guests here. Or try to anyway. And he can come on and talk a little bit about the horror that is the abortion of black children in America. Let's see here. And it's ringing. But it is absolutely insane and horrendous that we have this sort of genocide going on, and is completely and totally ignored by media. It's even ignored by stretches of media that I would think personally would be very concerned with it. Media outlets like BET, media outlets like TV One, Centrix. There is all the Johnson media like Ebony and Jet and Essence just sort of pass over this like it doesn't exist. They have sort of adopted this mainstream choice narrative, although this mainstream choice narrative is destroying our own community. It is absolutely amazing. And on our New Home Tampa Bay Newsmaker line, I believe, is Reverend Childress. Reverend Childress, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me this morning.
Oh, it is my honor. It is my honor. Why do you think that this particular tragedy, this continuing tragedy, that we had a tragedy here in Florida a couple of Sundays ago where a terrorist walks into a nightclub and kills 49 people, shoots them, and the country is frankly around the bend about this horrible tragedy. Why is the nation ignoring this continuous tragedy of black genocide?
The other side has framed the argument very well. They had co-opted civil rights mantras very skillfully, and they have desensitized the humanity of the baby, and basically has not given it its given the child its personhood, and it is more or less reduced to a thing. And so when you hear of these, of course, media, and we certainly have empathy and compassion for those who were gunned down, innocent life. Once again, basically they weren't in a combative climate there. They were basically enjoying themselves. And I said to the church, we have to remember, we know that indeed it was You hear a lot, it was a gay club, this, that, and the other. That was a mother's son, a father's son, whom they will not see again, who very well, as far as the Christian community is concerned, may have been praying for, and that was extremely tragic. But, and you're right, 1,786 African-American children are killed each day in a far more gruesome fashion. And it's very frustrating. And because we have not brought that personhood and the humanity, and media has fought us tooth and nail, we recognize we still have a better grassroots job to do. But I say to your listeners, I'm not advocating for them to do, but if those that don't believe it's a horrific, insidious act, they can go to my website and see the aftermath of what we're permitting by law each day in America, and a disproportionate amount of those children are African American.
You can go to blackgenocide.org. There are abortion pictures. Now, I'll tell you what. If you've avoided seeing what actually happens, because just the terminology of terminating a pregnancy or abortion sanitizes what the procedure actually is. But when you see what the procedure actually is and what happens to the baby, then I don't think there's any way that you can just keep that sanitized picture. I mean, the left, always calls it abortion or women's right to choose or feminism, but anything to sanitize the procedure. And the procedure is brutal, absolutely brutal. What I really don't get, or I'm starting not to get, I don't know, maybe because I'm old and my mind is going, I'm not sure what the deal is, Reverend. But it's you know what, after Mike Brown and after Trayvon Martin, how can a hypersensitive African-American community in America not see what's happening all along? We get pushed this way and that way with every doctrine of media, and I'll say it that way. But we can't see that the real death and destruction of our community is really, is happening and being encouraged. Even where I live, most of the Exodus or Planned Parenthood clinics are put up in my neighborhood. They're not out in the suburbs.
Right.
For Brittany and Tiffany, they're on my street with Lucretia. You know what? You know what I'm saying? That's where they are.
And that's a very accurate assessment. A very accurate assessment.
The new one in my neighborhood is 100 yards from a high school, from a mostly black high school. By design. And your listeners have to know this. That is deliberate. It is the eugenic plan, and the target is people of color. You know what? It seems so obvious, Reverend. It seems so obvious when you see, 100 yards from a predominantly black high school, there's an abortion clinic. Are you serious? It's right down the side. It's right down the sidewalk.
I also want to say to the audience, Planned Parenthood is the number one killer of unarmed African Americans. Okay, they target the African American community. Once again, all that is laid out. If you have not seen MAAFA 21, that's MAAFA 21, it unquestionably leaves you with no doubt that this systemic Holocaust that is being levied against the African American community, whom Margaret Sanger called human weeds, saying the most merciful thing that a mother can do once she's had a child is to kill the next one. These are statements by a person whose bust is sitting up in the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C., who's heralded by Hillary Clinton as a great woman who received the Margaret Sanger Award and said we need more people like Margaret Sanger. She's running, and I'm going to do my best to get her to give an explanation of that. And because this is a woman who wanted to exterminate black folk, plain and simple. Less Negroes was the agenda. So, yet she makes the comment, we need more people like Margaret Sanger. And everyone is now, this is not back in the 60s or 70s, everybody is now becoming aware of this racist agenda. But I had said early in this race of social activism when it comes to exposing this insidious evil, that if abortion was not lucrative, it would not be legal. What is going on now is people see it as a cash cow. We've learned, come on now, you've learned, folks, that Planned Parenthood sells body parts of babies. Jeez. What is this, the slave block? I mean, come on. Whole cadavers, a whole child, and you sold it? Is this America? I mean, the Soviet Union or the Third Reich didn't perform such atrocities, such callous, inhumane acts. I mean, they're profiting off of body parts. And the thing about it is, when you say profiting, they are telling the woman that it's a blob, and then they're taking the heart, they're taking the spine, they're taking eyes and ears and selling them with no with no profit or extra money going to the mother. Not that she would want it. She probably just thinks that first line that she came that from the council, oh, that's just a blob of tissue. There's nothing to this. We'll fix you up right away. And then they're finding out later, and they're grieved. And the church and other agencies are dealing with depression in women. They're dealing with the innate characteristic of a woman is to carry 9 months and to have the child, regardless whether or not it was a wise decision. It's a worse decision to terminate the child and then having that mother to live with that, number one. And number two, learning later about the horrible health ramifications from the result of the act, which is never talked about or discussed. And I challenged the Planned Parenthoods and a couple of congressmen, African-American congressmen, let's stop all the hype, the hyperbole, all the propaganda. I challenged them to a debate on the facts that they gave versus the facts, I would say the propaganda they give, and the facts that I have. No one is taking me up on it. They won't do it because they know they are lying.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Today, Bridget Griffin shared a video of her daily yoga routine, 2 self-help articles, and her new blog called Build Your Inner Bridge with Bridge. Girl, your sharing has turned into oversharing. No worries, Bridge. Geico has some info worth sharing with your 7 blog followers, like how you could save money on your car insurance, update your policy, and report a claim just by visiting geico.com. How's that for building your inner bridge? Bridge? Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
And we continue to, as a community, to be basically lambs to the slaughter. The visual picture I get is like when you have animals, basically, that you are leading to the slaughterhouse. There's somebody who keeps encouraging them to go down this pin one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And no one's really paying attention to what's happening at the end of the pin when they're getting their throat slit. That you just keep forcing them in there, and not only does it seem to be a cash cow for the organizations, these same organizations take money and put into the pockets of politicians for their campaigns and the like. Yes. So that's the other really sort of Dr. Mengele's sick part about this. That black children are being murdered in utero every single day by the thousands, and the money from all this 1,786. Yes. The money from all this ends up in the pockets of black congressmen, who went out on the Capitol steps in Washington. Hands up, don't shoot, to protect or to protest the murder of one black. And like you said earlier, Pastor, you know what? Mike Brown was somebody's baby. I get it. I get it. Yes. Mike Brown, for whatever his troubles were, was somebody's baby. I get that. And nobody looks at their child like that more than a mother, and I can't even imagine the mother's grief. I get that.
Right.
But they're out there with their hands up, don't shoot. That never happened, by the way. While at the same time, in their own town and cities right around them, thousands of black children are being murdered and nothing is being said, and they're actually profiting from them.
Well, you hit it right.
Am I okay to be a little, for my brain to be a little crazy about all this? Am I on the right track?
Yes, it's baffling, and you hit it right on the head. Our leadership, folks, I hate, you just don't want it to be so, but it's quite clear that they had sold us out on that, and that is a beautiful illustration that you gave. How the Congressional Black Caucus came out with their hands up, playing upon race, not looking at the facts, but yet the same people are receiving checks from the number one killer of African Americans who were unarmed, innocent, seeking the American dream. Dr. King said the Negro cannot win if he chooses to sacrifice his children for immediate comfort and safety. He prophetically said that. Dr. King prophetically said, this is before Roe versus Wade, Dr. King prophetically said, he says, America has traded an I-it relationship for the I-thou. He said, you are making African Americans it instead of thou. And what you tell me today, what does that more than abortion? It is not thou, it is an it. And he said this is due to your spiritual delinquency and moral debauchery, something along that line. He said you're depraved. Dr. King said America was depraved because they had traded the I thou for the I it. And so there's nothing we do today. Nothing has been more blatantly exposed when it comes to that scenario that Dr. King gave than abortion. The child is not a person. It's a thing that I can do whatever I want to. And our leadership knows, by the way, 1,786 a day, 52% of all African-American pregnancies end in abortion. We make up 12.4% of the population, but 36 million abortions. So, 36% of the abortions. So we are in a state of genocide. That's, once again, it is not a catchy phrase. It is a sociological fact. It is Black genocide. It's systemic. 20 million African Americans are missing. Think of our political power. 20 million missing since 1973 directly due to abortion. And the weakening of the uterine lining, the link between breast cancer and abortion. It is an unnatural act. The brain does not recognize it until months later that the child is not there. It is still doing things to the body, the woman's body, to make it preparing for a child. Then all of a sudden, because it was an unnatural act, it starts to shut down when it realizes the child is not there. But that causes nodules and things to develop that are in the body that aren't being fed, that develop into cancer. African American women are now leading the country in breast cancer because of using abortion as a contraceptive. We are now in the weakening of the uterine lining. The first thing a woman does when she gets pregnant and she goes to the pediatrician, and the first thing he's going to ask her, have you had an abortion? If she says yes, she immediately becomes high risk because they know that her the uterine lining has been compromised by the abortion. And so she is now, African American women are getting lead the country in miscarriages. And I wrote in a piece to a congressman, do you realize our women would have children in the fields and then go immediately back to work, and now they're not able to carry full term? Something has happened, and what it is, the Congressional Black Caucus and many of our local black leaders are in bed, literally, with Planned Parenthood. We have become shepherds leading the sheep to the slaughter, just as you had so profoundly assessed early in the broadcast. And it takes the voice of conscience, which Dr. King called for, a voice of conscience, not Republican, not Democratic. Where are the people of conscience, knowing that this Holocaust, this insidious act is being levied by our own people? They need to be called out for what it is.
You know, there were a lot of the House Democrats took over the House chambers in a 1960s style sit-in this week to try to get the House to vote on gun control legislation. And when I exactly when I take that, well, you know what, it was the nicest sit-in ever. They had dinner catered, the whole kind of thing. I thought, well, that's the way to sit in. You know, we're going to sit here for a while, and then we're going to have dinner. They're going to bring dinner to us. It's going to be a catered affair. And then they went home for a vacation yesterday because apparently they have the resolve of a white girl passing a Starbucks. I gotta go. But it was just amazing. Again, members of the Congressional Black Caucus, especially, and I think that we are perfectly within our rights and our responsibilities to hold them on this issue, especially responsible. Absolutely. Because they are running in these predominantly black districts, a lot of them in pre-clearance districts, which will tell pre-clearance is dog whistle for black. By the way, to let everybody know that when you say pre-clearance, it's a minority district, and minority is dog whistle for black. These districts allowing this genocide. And genocide, and people will tell you, and I'm sure you've heard, Pastor, that genocide is hyperbole. It's not hyperbole. It's happening. When you have more than 1,000 people being murdered every day, that's genocide. And you mentioned the lack of political power when you could have that many more people alive right now. And I look at it this way. You could always – what kind of economic power might you have had? What kind of power do you have in a way that's economic that could move these political figures your direction because your communities now matter? Because they'll be growing and not shrinking.
Right.
The opportunities that we have missed because and the idea that these people, hands up, don't shoot, are in bed, like you said, with the abortionists, with the murderers.
And, and you mentioned that boycott. And I just want to say, John Lewis, we thank you for Selma. We thank you for your efforts. But it's time to retire, John. I'm sorry. It's time to retire, John. I love you, bro, but you're on the wrong side of too many issues that are decimating the African American community and destroying family. It's time to give that up, John. And I say that respectfully for your earlier sacrifices, but. And you have assessed the issue and the problem quite accurately, and it's up to we, the people, to say enough and demand more from our leadership. You cannot have it in the platform of the Democratic Party, something that is literally decimating the African-American community, affecting the health of women, the psychological health of women, and unquestionably causes the chief cornerstone, in my estimation, of all social change, the church, to basically embrace, you're asking the church to embrace the doctrine of death. And we're counseling our women to go into these clinics in case of a crisis pregnancy, which literally is not only killing the baby, but later in life killing the woman from the cancer that she basically develops from that operation. like I say, if anyone's listening who's in the medical field wants to challenge me, and I can find someone down in the Florida area or whatever, but I can't get down there. These are medical facts I'm giving. I'm not arguing from the theological perspective, which I could, but the fact of the matter is, undoubtedly, this is a social injustice. It is a eugenic-minded plan against people of color. I'm just saying it over and over again. How is it her bust is still in the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery as one of the 100 greatest women, and African Americans are not having fits over that? Only a few pro-life activists come and say this is a sham, this bust should be taken down, and I'll be there in protest on October 10th just to say that. But we have to raise awareness, and women and men, you cannot, under any circumstance, with a clear conscience, suggest that this is a viable resource for anyone who is coming to an untimely pregnancy. You mentioned the political power that we have lost, that is so true from the lack of numbers, but there's no one to invent the refrigerator, the elevator, plasma, all the Garrett and the traffic signal. How many black inventors, black minds have we destroyed in the womb? That I used to say they got credit, patented for some of the most revolutionized inventions that have basically elevated America. But probably the greatest miracle for them was even to get credit for it. We don't know how many black inventors just didn't get credit. Somebody stole it. So we are killing minds in the womb whom God has shown. America, George Washington carved over 300 products from a peanut. I mean, come on. I mean, God has said that this is a people who will give great contributions to a nation that was founded supposedly on God we trust, or we hold all these things. We hold these truths to be self-evident. And by the way, we've never held that truth. There's never been a time in America that there was not a law on our books that refuted that truth. And until we have laws that hold that truth, that all mankind created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, until we actually, there's a time in our history where we hold that truth, America will not have reached the dream that Dr. King talked about in 1963, where America lives out its creed. And I really believe that one day, I know I may sound crazy, I really believe that God is not going to allow those words to fall to the ground, what he echoed in 1963, that America actually came to a time in its history that it held its creed, that we do hold this truth, that all mankind create equal, from the womb to the tomb. When we do, it will be the America that a core group of the founding fathers envisioned, because there were some of them that said slavery would destroy this nation since they didn't abolish it. And we're living in that quagmire. We're living in that confusion today, where everything is seen through race and politics now. And we have to get to that point that what King talked about on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that we do hold its creed. We live out that creed. And it's a God thing, and it's up for people of courage to step forward and say, you're supposed to represent me. You cannot validate. You cannot endorse this. I will not give you my vote. I will not, in any way, form, or fashion, I am not going to be a part of your agenda. That will force change in the Democratic Party. And I am not suggesting one party, and I'm not saying Republicans are all that. But for right now, they don't have it in the platform, and I have to pick the candidate that reflects my values that I know unquestionably would be blessing to my family, their future, their health, and their soundness of mind. I mean, you can,
yes,
you know, what profit
yes,
is man if he gained the whole world and we lose his soul? we have to get there.
I think on that line, I've always told people that we need to, in our communities, start doing what other communities do. You need to start bottom line. I call it bottom lining. So you look at two candidates and you say, well, who makes my life better? Who is closer? Who is closer to what I actually believe? So, which is why I ended up not, leaving one party and being associated with another early on, strangely enough, right after the birth of my son. Because I know people don't believe when I say it. Yes, me as a young man at Florida State University, which is the Berkeley of the South, by the way. Yes, I had a very, very erudite opinion about abortion. My opinion early was, well, if you don't like it, don't have one. I thought that was genius. I really did. I'm so embarrassed that I actually said that to people out loud. I thought that was genius because everything that came from my mouth when I was 21 was a gem. Apparently, I thought. Until a few years later, I'm sitting in a labor delivery room holding my son, who's now 25, and we didn't find out that we were pregnant with my son until way late in the pregnancy, really. So he was never a blob to us. He was always Alex. And then when I'm holding him, I'm looking at him and going, how is it possible that people can just, seemingly on a whim, destroy life like that? It just it was one of the most it was really and I don't want to get all weepy about it because I will, but it was really a spiritual thing in the sense that in just a minute, there were 4 people in the room, and suddenly there were 5 people in the room. Real people. And that my son had been a real person the entire time. He had never been a blob. He had never been a hunk of protoplasm. He had never been anything but a real person all along. And all that fell on me while holding him, watching the afternoon news because we'd missed Oprah. I said, I was talking to him going, you missed Oprah. She was on a little bit ago. We're just talking. And we're watching, he and I are watching the news, his little gray eyes wide open. And he seemed to be paying attention. Or maybe I'm just hallucinating. Maybe I was just crazy. Maybe I still am. But he seemed to be paying attention, Pastor. He seemed to be paying attention. And I'm thinking, how is it possible, and especially now, how is it possible that we could support people that are okay with destroying lives like this? How is it okay that we could put our lot in? And that's what we do. We put our lot in to these people who are supporting murder of our children. Yes. And at that point, that day, September 12th, 1990, my brain said, you have got to do something different, young man. And I did. And that's when I made the switch, so to speak. And it wasn't because of any reasons, because I still spend a lot of time on this show slapping Republicans upside the head for their stupidity because they're humans and they're stupid. Right. You know what? There's no panacea. But at that point, that was enough for me to say I can't keep throwing my lot in with people who would murder my own child. How are we going to make this? Profit. How are we going to make this change? Yeah, for profit. That's even. God, that's amazing to me.
It's programs like this, to be quite honest with you, it's people of your spirit that have a platform. Programs like this, it may not be CNN, but this is where we do begin. And folks, if you're listening, CNN is a problem. Many of these major reporting agencies are manipulating your mind. So when you come to a program like this, it's just being fair, rational, looking at the facts of what they are, being able to have a discussion, bold enough to talk about how they got revelations of truth, and how it's okay to change. Once you get more information, you don't have to be locked into your ideology. And that's a battle that I had with my fellow priests and reverends and clergy that I work with, that, we are not infallible. We can make mistakes, and we have to adjust to the information and society. But there's one thing that never been changed from Genesis to now, and that God is the arbiter of life, and we don't have the right to circumvent that. In the story, there's nothing, just in the spirit of doing to others as you would have others do unto you. They have the right to pursue happiness. Yes, they may be born in poverty, but all of us at one time were born in poverty. As far as African Americans, there was a generation unquestionably was going to be born in poverty, and that was not the solution. We have the right to pursue. Pursue implies that I don't have it, but I have the right to grasp it, to go after it. And yes, African Americans are discriminated against in that arena more so than their white counterparts, but still, that's not a reason to cut off life because you assess that this child is going to have a difficult time. Yes, being raised by a single mother, all the data proves that you have a harder hill to climb, but the person sitting in office right now was raised by a single mother. So
Amen.
we have
there
to
you go.
We have to understand that right has never been given to a mother, to a father on this side. It has been a divine right. You don't have the right to circumvent and to end. And so I know that maybe some of your listeners say, what a case of rape and incest. First of all, that's half of 1%, and you probably wouldn't be having a program on the Holocaust of African Americans if we just adhere to that 0.5%. And I'm not saying I would never try to defend, because the most recognized jazz player in the world when the data came out was Louis Armstrong. He is a product of rape and incest. When you look at the 16th Chapel and all the wonderful contributions that Michelangelo made, he was a product of rape and incest. The person that taught me initially about the Negro Project, Margaret Sanger's diabolical plan against people of color, mother was the product of rape and incest. And I could go on and on. The Billy Graham, they voted him the world's greatest evangelist. Well, every evangelist knows you need someone to sing before you go out. And Billy Graham said the most anointed, eloquent woman that he's ever had to accompany him on many of his crusades was Ethel Waters, a black woman, Ethel Waters, but a product of rape and incest. And I'm not saying I know what you're going through, because I certainly do not. And I can't even as a man basically say I have empathy to the degree where I know exactly what you're going through. But I would want to say there have been some tremendous contributions out of the thorn, out of the pit of despair that have emerged. Truth crushed to earth shall rise again. That indeed God, for some reason, because he's God and I'm not, chooses to take out of horrible, excruciating situations and bring forth a rose, a gem, a diamond out of it. And these were literally that: Ethel Waters, Louis Armstrong. I'm naming just a few off the top of my head, but you'd be shocked at that 0.5% and what that 0.5% has made a great contribution to the world. Louis Armstrong and Ethel Waters, those are world-renowned people. So it's awesome. But we have to get to what Martin said in '63, that we hold that true.
Morning, welcome to Burger King.
Yeah, what's up with this enormous burrito?
Well, it's the big, enormous breakfast burrito from Burger King, packed with sausage and bacon, plus eggs, cheese, and hash browns.
I really like breakfast burritos, and that is one enormous burrito. Oh, I get it, because it's enormous, but you put eggs, so egg-normous.
Okay.
It's enormous. Get the Eggnormous Burrito, now only at Burger King at participating restaurants.
That all people are created equal. All,
yes.
even if they happen to not have had a birthday yet. You know, even just because they haven't had a birthday yet, they're still a person. And I tell you what, that on September 12th, 1990, I got that. I mean, it fell on me like a ton of bricks. And
that's awesome.
And then I have been a fly in the ointment ever since, Pastor. I've been a fly in the ointment ever since. How can people help with this effort? You mentioned an effort in October in D.C. How can my listeners and the people that I'm going to make sure hear this program, how can they help? Because we got to be about action. Lives are on the line.
You're right. Never before has there been and I say this having been doing this not full time, but it has developed to be full time. Never before has there been so many pro-life African American activists realizing that we have to get this done. It's not going to be done by the White House or the Congress and the Senate. Grassroots movement to bring awareness. You know, my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. And so July 17th, I'll be traveling to Cincinnati with the Genocide Awareness Project. I'll have about 40 or 50 people with me. We'll be parked outside the NAACP because they won't let us inside. They will not have the discussion. They censor all resolutions, which is against their own rules. And I say this to your listeners, you got to understand, I'm messing with people's money and their position in prestige, and this is what they do. They break their own rules to silence this message, to that there would not be the exposure of their link to Planned Parenthood. And so we're going to be out there in protest. And then in October, we're doing a 3-day demonstration. We'll be in New Jersey on Saturday, Pennsylvania and Maryland on Sunday, and then we'll wind up at Washington, D.C. on that Monday, Columbus Day, at the Portrait Gallery where the bust of Margaret Sanger is, and we'll keep protesting there periodically until they remove it. And then we're going to the new museum that will open up September 24th. We'll have opened up already the National Black Museum that's basically dedicating a wing to Black Lives Matters, and if Black Lives Matters, I think you have to talk with us. So
yeah,
and we're gonna we're you know, I never thought I would thank George Soros for much, but this Black Lives Matters has helped me begin a conversation. And they said, well, you're co-opting. I said, no, I've been talking Black Genocide since 2002 on my website. I could prove that, and have been traveling on college campuses for nearly 20 years. So I said, no, you co-opted me, if anything. but Black Lives Matters is what we've been talking about. But they have helped us so much. We go, you know, I can go out my door right now. If I stop 50 people, all 50 will have heard that mantra, Black Lives Matters. Media is using it for one thing, for political reasons. Well, I'm using it for awareness because knowledge comes first with starting a conversation, and they have allowed Black activists in the life movement to begin a conversation. It was not their design, but it certainly has turned out to be probably one of the best things ever happened to the Black pro-life movement. And we can talk about, you want to talk about Black Lives Matters? Well, let's talk about the 1,786 Black Americans that are killed each day by abortion, by design. If Black Life Matters, then why are you supporting this? Why are you allowing your government to inflict this upon a segment of the society that has a history of discrimination levied against it? You're aiding and abetting it by endorsing this platform, by endorsing this agenda. And it's, of course, not growing as leaps and bounds I would want it to go. Of course, I would want it to be over yesterday. I can see progress. I can see an awareness. You know, I'm beginning to see, if I have to go to different places, people recognizing MyAlpha 21 and recognizing the link now more so. So we have to do it ourselves, so it's going to take a little longer, but guess what? It is getting done, and because it's truth, you can do nothing against the truth. It advances, and we're going to leave the timing up to the Lord, but we would love for our representatives to have a revelation, a Kairos moment like you did, and we know that can happen too because there's a God. And so we can't draw back. We keep pressing and pray that it gets better, but it has taken its horrible toll on the African American community.
It has, no doubt. Pastor, it's time for us to get out of here. And because I have you on the line, because I am blessed and honored that you would join me this morning, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing before we sign off. I'm going to ask you to pray. And I know that, you know what, that you're ready to pray at the drop of a hat anyway. So it's not like I'm asking you to get out of your comfort zone. Like Smith Wigglesworth say, I don't pray all day, but I don't go 20 minutes without praying. You know what I'm saying? I don't pray for 20 minutes, but I don't go for 20 minutes without praying. And that's kind of how we have to live our life. If you would pray for this cause and this program to touch the hearts of somebody who is listening that might not have been thinking about this in the way that we have presented today, I would be honored.
Amen. Father, we thank you first for the anointing and the increasing influence of this broadcast with the words of life that are coming forth. And for those who may be wrestling, I first say for the woman who may have heard this, who has made a bad decision in the past, that Jesus forgives. There is forgiveness. And he knew you would need him when indeed he was on the cross. He knew you'd come to this point of having remorse and a broken and a contrite heart. He will not despise. He will not reject you. He loves you. He is there to forgive that you may go on. And for those who may be contemplating, oh, Lord, I pray even now that they would have heard this and they would look for more information, that indeed they would recognize that there is a plan. God has a plan for that life that has been conceived. Life begins at conception, and we thank you that, Lord, that this audience is saying, what can I do? That you will guide them. The person who wants to take this to another level of engagement, that, God, you direct them, maybe to their local pastor, a pregnancy center, or activist group in their area. Guide them, order their steps. And I thank you for the blessing. We can do nothing without you. We put it ourselves before you and say, let us play a role in the salvation of these children and the salvation of America. And we would not have laws that shed innocent blood. And we thank you, dear Lord, for your favor today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Well, amen. Pastor, we appreciate you being on. And I hope to get to D.C. in October on Columbus Day to join you. Maybe I'll bring a contingent. Great. I'd like to bring a contingent from the southern states because we kind of get left out sometimes because maybe it's too hot, maybe it's too far away. People won't come this far south. I don't know. But I hope
I hear you on
that. We can we can build a contingent of people who are concerned about life, and especially life in our own communities, and are ready to actually take action. So we're going to plan and we're going to pray, and my prayer is to meet you in person and shake your hand and give you a hug on Columbus Day in D.C. And we'll continue this dialogue. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. God bless you, and we'll talk to you very soon, I hope.
Thank you for having me. That's great news. God bless you. It's
my honor. Thank you so much. All right. Absolutely amazing. You know what? When you hear the truth and when you hear it the way that Reverend Childress puts the truth, it is absolutely undeniable that there is something nefarious going on. And it's being ignored. And media is complicit in this effort. And people that we think of as leaders, especially leaders in a quote, so-called black leaders are complicit in the murder of our own children? It's hard to wrap your brain around. It's hard to wrap your brain around that we have a president who told Planned Parenthood that he had their back. I didn't say that. He said that. That he had their back. As they murder our children every day to the tune of 1,786. It's time we fight back. My name is Blair Lawson. This is Fight Back here on Blog Talk Radio. We will see you on Monday. We'll talk to you on Monday. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
This is Fight Back, the internet's premier anti-social justice, anti-communist, anti-socialist program on the internet. If you are ready to get into this fight, you are amongst friends. If you are not, then this show may be too intense for you.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
Safeway, your new neighborhood grocer, offers more, like gas rewards to redeem at participating Chevron and Texaco stations. Earn up to 20 cents off per gallon when you shop. And use your phone number at checkout. It's our way of being a good neighbor. Sign up at Safeway.com today. Maximum gas reward at participating Chevron or Texaco stations is 20 cents per gallon in a single fill-up up to 25 gallons. Other restrictions and exclusions apply. See complete details at Safeway.com.
Mako, one of the ocean's most ferocious predators. Unrivaled in power, unmatched in speed. Until now. Mako, the tallest, fastest, longest coaster in Orlando. Now open at SeaWorld. Feel the Predator power. For a limited time, get a single-day ticket for $79. Only at SeaWorld. Taxes, service fees, and parking not included. Restrictions apply.